Hey everyone, Dinosaur MTG here because I am a dinosaur when it comes to Magic. I wanted to talk about some differences between today's Magic and the dinosaur era that I learned in. These are in no particular order, just a few things I've been thinking about as I continue to play in the modern era while looking back at how I started. Number 1, sleeves. It may surprise you that at one point in Magic's history, nobody used sleeves. Even when I started playing in 1996, the concept of sleeving your deck was still new. In my playgroup in particular, some of us used penny sleeves. Dragon sleeves didn't even come out until 1999. Magic was just a game back then. With or without penny sleeves, we put rubber bands around our cards to keep everything together. Either that or we just stored them in the starter deck boxes that we originally bought the cards in. My playgroup didn't have anything really valuable, so it wasn't really that big of a deal. But there were players out there back then with dual lands, Power 9 and such, and no deck sleeves. One of the other Magic YouTubers I watched, Nikachu, did a reaction video once watching a Pro Tour from back then, and just the look on his face, watching them shuffle up dual lands with no sleeves. Like he just couldn't process it. Just the shock and awe on his face, it's funny. Number 2, trading. Before the days of online card markets, there were really only two ways to acquire cards. Either buy packs or singles from your LGS, or trade with your friends. And trading back then, it was the Wild West. There were two ways to go about it. Either you each simply gave the other the cards you both were looking for, if you could part with those cards, regardless of how many cards were involved in the trade, or you traded based on what Scry and Inquest told you of the value of each card. Most of the time it was the first option. For example, if you had a Hypnotic Spectre I was looking for and I had a Force of Nature you were looking for, we traded even though the Hypnotic Spectre might be worth more. Trading was the heart of collection building. If you got a ton of cards in packs that you were just not going to use, you didn't have many options to get rid of those cards. Online stores weren't really a thing back then. Either you tried to sell them to your LGS, which wasn't always a guaranteed option since LGSs back then had very specific buy lists, or you tried to trade with your friends. Number 3, set releases. Another thing you might find strange in 90s Magic, even into the early 2000s, was there was not much product back then that came out in a year. You got 3 to 4 sets in a year. Wizards back then was able to think for itself and give the game room to breathe and develop. They wanted players to be able to take in the lore along with the gameplay. There used to be blocks back then, a group of sets that were tied together by story. You had a main set to establish the story and 2 expansions to expand on that story. Core sets like 4th and 5th edition were released every 2 to 3 years, and they were all reprints. The game was much simpler back then. You had time to play with all the cards, and there were no ulterior motives of playing the game to seek out premium versions of cards or boosters to flip them in the secondary market. In fact, outside the occasional special DCI foil of a card, once foils were introduced, there were no premium ultra special versions of cards. Everything was available in only one type of booster pack or starter deck. Number 4, the meta. Nowadays, there's thousands of videos within hundreds of YouTube channels giving you deck techs and set reviews covering every format. Back in the 90s, you had 2 ways to learn the meta, either by trial and error with your playgroup, or reading Scry and Inquest once a month. Internet coverage wasn't a thing back then. This kept the game pure. Magic was intended to be a journey of discovery. You scrounge up whatever cards you can get to cobble together a deck, and you had a fun game with your friends, and every game was different. I see games played today where each player just goes through the motions. You'll see like a first turn duress, the other player will just automatically discard something because they know that's the target, because those players have played each other so much with the same deck, it just becomes automated. Back in the 90s, even with your regular play group, you didn't know what you were getting yourself into, because everyone was constantly experimenting as their collections waxed and waned. Number 5, pre-releases. They still do pre-releases today, but between set spoilage and so-called leaks, and most of the product being available on pre-release day, it's just not a pre-release. Back in the day when a new set was about to come out, you knew next to nothing until pre-release day. There might be lore info or maybe a card or two revealed, but that was it. When you showed up for the pre-release, your first time handling the new product was the judges passing out packs for you to crack for your sealed pull. Stores were not allowed to sell the product until the next week. During deck construction, the only cards you were allowed to have on the table with you were what you opened, and you actually had to check off what you opened on a set list along with your name and DCI number. These set lists would be used throughout the day and evening to do random deck checks to make sure everyone was playing with only the cards they pulled. Also, pre-releases were big events back then, usually reserved for a Saturday, and they could run anywhere from 7 or 8 rounds. And Wizards really rolled out the red carpet when it came to special promos or other neat little trinkets to celebrate the new set. So that were 5 things that I thought about that I wanted to compare then and now. What were your experiences with all these? Let me know in the comments, and be sure to check out all my other videos for some fun stuff. Until then, keep playing Magic the way Richard Garfield intended.